Всем привет, с вами доктор Парадокс, мы продолжаем проходить Stanley Parable. И сходить с ума здесь потихоньку. Не знаю, как у вас, но у меня все уже мозг сломался. О, я выключил компьютер. А вот этот компьютер тоже могу выключить? Да. Смотрите, я этого не делал первый раз. Я как бы еще подряд в это играю, то есть на одном дыхании. Если на ютубе смотреть, это точно не так сломается мозг. Люди, короче, сами поиграйте. И чё? Куда мне? Теперь? Давайте налево. Я просто уже, теряюсь.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Давайте теперь пойдем все-таки в кабинет.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs.
А если еще раз вниз пойти, я что-то не понимаю. Интересно, там вот просто... Там же не может повториться то же самое, те же самые события. Это капец, это уже заслуга, конечно, огромной игры, то, что заставляет вот такие вопросы задавать и стоять просто и думать, да? Даже не могу решить. Ну-ка, что там? Неужели то же самое?
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss.
Подождите, то же самое, что ли?
Left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
Так, нет, похоже, людей.
Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
Все-таки повторяются здесь события.
None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind
Почему не видел?
And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real.
Даже над движком Source смеются. Что во всех играх же на Source не видно ног.
This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually...
Ну ладно, здесь все-таки повторяются события. В принципе, это немножко может разочаровывать, но... То есть, с другой стороны, они этим еще больше ломают мозг. Как бы, может, это их цель. Если их цель, чтобы игроки сошли с ума полностью, то это они хорошо сделали даже.
And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go
Ладно,
back
значит,
to my
все-таки не
job.
нужно повторяться,
Let me
как
continue
бы
pushing
нужно
the
все-таки
buttons.
запоминать действия.
Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Оп.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Хорошо. Теперь уже попробуем по-другому. Давайте теперь все-таки поднимемся к начальнику.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Или лучше не надо, мы же вроде уже поднимали. Я уже, блин, не помню, что мы делали. Давайте все-таки пойдем направо. И где был телефон, опять туда пойдем.
When Stanley came to a set of two open... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's
Так,
been
вот.
waiting.
Теперь попробуем ответить.
Let her, Stanley.
sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. Oh,
Да,
right.
рассказчик нам сказал, что мы сейчас что-то там признаемся в
I want you to
любви,
come in and tell me all
и
about
все, игра кончится. Ой, твою мать.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving
Понятно.
wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Ой.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Что? Окей.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
Я не буду нажимать. Или надо все-таки?
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing
Ой.
exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him
Сейчас, видимо, все вернется, да?
So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls, and down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions, and down another was a game with a baby, and he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Не надо, пожалуйста.
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Хорошо.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself?
Дом постепенно
How can I get
превратился в
him to
наш
see
офис.
what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Че, можно не нажимать-то?
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again. Stanley pushed a
Пожалуйста,
button.
умрите, отлично.
And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Ладно, давайте закончим на этом эту серию. И, я не знаю, есть ли вообще у этой игры конец? И вообще, что будет в конце? Как-то нас хотя бы проинформируют, то, что мы все концовки прошли, или там все способы, или что вообще, я не знаю. Ну, надеюсь, что вам было интересно. Надеюсь, что с вами сейчас все в порядке, вы не сошли с ума пока что еще. Я похоже, уже все. Всем спасибо, что смотрели. Увидимся в следующих сериях. Всем удачи, пока.